welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me are life coaches Monique Scott and Cindie Chavez. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. All right, so there we are with a new introduction. Hope you guys are liking that. Welcome to the LOA Today show for today. We've got some exciting stuff planned. We're doing a little bit of an experiment based on a book, or actually a pair of books, one of which Cindie shared with me when she first came on the show. And it's pretty cool. These are books that actually have experiments about how to, I guess, kind of convince yourself the law of attraction really does work. And they're cool. They're good experiments, right, Cindie? I mean, you're the one who shared them with me. Where'd you first hear about them?
I'm not sure where I heard about the E2 book. I can't remember. I got it when it came out. And I think the thing I really liked best about, I do know how I heard about it. Well, it was how I learned about Pam Grout, because I was invited to speak on a show of somebody a podcast like show of somebody that I know. And the speaker that was before me was Pam Grout. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know who Pam Grout was, but after hearing her, she was really interesting. And so then I went out and looked her up and I got this book of hers. And the book, the thing I really like about it is that it's 9 experiments, and just the whole idea of putting yourself in the mindset of it's an experiment. You know, sometimes when I'm coaching people, I do this. I say, okay, we're in the lab.
Right.
And this is what we're going to do. We're going to create this, 2-week container, and this is what we're going to do. And regardless of the outcome, we're not going to judge what happened only by the outcome. It's all information. Instead of being like, I got what I wanted, it worked. I didn't get what I wanted, it failed, which is really this limited way of viewing it, instead of what can I learn here? And I like that Pam Grout wrote the book that way. It's like there's no success and failure. It's just all an experiment. And you put, I like the way the book gives you the experiment, and you put the date and the time, and you have a certain time frame that you're going to watch and see what happens. And so I had heard about the first book called E2, E Square. And that's the one I think I sent you or told you about.
Right.
And then I don't know if it was months or I guess it was years later, somebody in my Facebook group said, hey, have you guys heard of this new book, E3? And I was like, what? Because I didn't know there was a second book. And so that got me to go back to the first book. I ordered it immediately. And then I went back and pulled the first book off the shelf and decided to start working with it at the same time. And actually, I think that's when I sent it to you, because it was like it came back into my frame of reference. And I thought, this is going to be fun.
And it is fun. I mean, it's a fun set of exercises, and they're really just what they sound like. They're a way of helping to build your own belief system and to kind of play around with it, learn how the whole thing works. Now, Monique, I know this is kind of new to you. You hadn't heard this one before. Have you ever thought about like doing, law of attraction as a scientific experiment?
No, actually, I haven't, but it sounds pretty cool. And I'm also thinking, this could be something good for maybe some newer people that I meet. Currently, all of my clients now, they know about the law of attraction and manifestation, but this would have helped me early on in my coaching with other people who did not, they didn't understand.
Right.
So
yeah.
Been cool.
Yeah. There's one of the things in here is that just that simple experiment of like thinking about a car and then seeing how many of them you see. You often hear people say, well, I never saw, a bright yellow Volkswagen until I bought one, and now they're just everywhere. And we know reticular activation, right? But it's because we focus on expands.
Right.
And while I was reading this book, I was out in California, and I was staying with one of my long time best friends who I've been friends with since we were little tiny kids. And I was kind of teaching her about this stuff because she hadn't really heard much about it. And I said, well, I was telling her about the reticular activation system. It's the part of your brain that once you focus on something, it helps you find it, helps you see that everywhere. And so I used that example. I said, you know how sometimes you get a new car and then you see them everywhere. And she said, well, that's not going to happen with me because my car is like whatever year it was, Camry, and it's beige and it has a gold package. Like, who puts a gold package on a Camry? You know, and she was naming all these things about her car that was so unique that it just wasn't a good example for her. It wasn't going to happen. And I said, okay, well, you know what I mean, though. So then we jump in the car to go to brunch. We went and got breakfast, like a half a mile from her house. And then we came back. Like it was a mile round trip, and we saw like 6 cars or something that were just like hers. And it was so funny. I could not stop laughing. I was like, look, there's another one. Look, that one has a gold package too.
Right.
She was like, okay, I'm a believer now. I get it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, that's the fun of experiments like this, because first of all, it's a way of overcoming a limiting belief. There's a strong limiting belief that she had. And just by even talking about it, all of a sudden, oh my God, here's all this data coming in that she didn't even think was there.
And you know, it's one of those things, when you put it in this frame of an experiment, it's easier to not have some big attachment to a specific outcome. Because as soon as you are like completely attached to a specific outcome, the thing becomes much harder to manage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so in these experiments, I guess starting right off from the very beginning of having like, whatever, like, let's just see what happens. Doesn't matter one way or the other if I see another Volkswagen, right? It's just, it's just a car.
Right.
That makes it a lot easier to be easy about it, I guess.
Well, it is. And in fact, I told you this story. I've told listeners this story. But when the first time that I picked up the book after you told me about it, it was on a Sunday. I'll never forget this. It was on a Sunday, and I was in a phase of my life where I was trying to help a lot of people on Facebook with LOA. And I got into the group, and all of the groups, you know how people get all worked up about number sequences, 1, 2, 3, 5, 5, 5, 6, 7, 8, all that kind of stuff. They were going, like, people were going crazy about it, like in fear-driven mode. Oh my God, I got 666. I mean, does that mean the devil is going to come after me? Or, well, why can't I get 1, 2, 3? Or, well, I keep seeing 4, 4, 4. What the heck does it mean? Is like the boogeyman going to get me? I mean, it was just crazy, the kinds of things that people were coming up with. And I finally just threw in the towel. I said, okay, I was trying to calm them down. I was trying to look, no, not a big deal. No, they weren't having it. So, okay, time for me to get off Facebook is what that is. All right, that's the sign. So I got off Facebook and I went over to the bedroom and picked up the book. I said, okay, well, this looks pretty cool. So I started reading it, got to the first experiment. And the first experiment was basically just to ask the universe to show me something that the law of attraction works. Didn't matter what. I think it was like a 48-hour time limit. It had to be done within 48 hours. And it was very open-ended. So like Cindy's saying, I mean, if it's open-ended, you're not going to have a whole lot of attachment to it. Heck, you don't even know what it is yet. You haven't asked for anything specifically. Just show me something, right? So like she says, it's got forms in there, and you're supposed, I didn't actually do the form, I have to say. I didn't actually follow the rules according to Hoyle, but you're supposed to print out the form. So I kind of mentally filled it out, right? So at the top of the form, it says, okay, experiment number 1, this is an experiment to see if, show me something. The universe is going to show me something that says the law of attraction works. So I'll really know that it works. And then there's a place for the date. So I wrote in the date and the time that you start. And I looked at my clock on my smartphone, and the clock said 5:55. And I just fell over laughing, because what I realized was the experiment had just begun and ended in one split second. So and I'm laughing like crazy. Louise is in the other room saying, are you okay? What's wrong? I practically fell on the floor laughing because it was such an instant result, But it also reinforced for me, there is an example of how if you don't have an attachment, it comes to you fast. The universe really does like speed. The only thing that's holding it up is us. And boy, did that reinforce it for me that day. But so that's what kind of led me to think, well, let's try to do it as a live experiment here on the show. Not necessarily that one, but let's try to do some live experiments here on the show. We can make them so that, you know, some of them will actually come true that quickly during the show. Maybe we'll have people in the live stream saying, well, I just got an instant result. And that would be really cool.
That would be cool.
Or maybe, you know, it's something that we have to wait a week and we find out a week later, you know, what did people get and so forth. But it's like Cindie said, we don't treat it as if it's some kind of a contest. It's just, let's just try it, see what the result is. We won't be attached to it. See what kind of fun we can have. And the best part too is you don't have to be listening to the live stream. Anybody who's listening to the podcast, they can do the same thing. You know, no matter when they're listening to it, they could listen to this 6 to 8 weeks from now, and it would work just fine.
Right.
So, yeah.
The one that I did that go around, what was funny was, you know, I had this group of like hundreds of people who were reading about E3 when the person in my group said, hey, has anybody done this book? And I was like, no, I just ordered it. This is great. And so I went back to the other book, and this is the part where I had a little bit of an attachment to the outcome at first that I detected. And that's that I decided to do the experiment, and the one I decided to do, I'm not sure what title she gives it, but it was ask for something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's anything. Ask for anything. I think there were some stipulations, like probably not to ask to, you know, for $5 million or for a brand new, you know, Mercedes to appear in your driveway or something. Like, make it something that could possibly happen, but it doesn't matter what it is. And Brenda is asking if we're talking about the E Squared book, and yes, we are talking about the E Squared book.
Yeah.
So I decided to ask, and I decided to tell the group that I was going to do this experiment and ask everyone to do it with me. And so I realized then that, oh, like, I'm the leader of this group, and I'm going to ask for something, and it's supposed to happen in 24 hours or 48 hours. It might have been the same one you did, Well, and it was like, it was like, oh, the attachment kicked in. Like, I felt myself go, do you really want to announce this? Like, what if it doesn't happen?
Right.
And, you know, I just made the decision. I was like, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, I will say, nothing happened. That's how experiments go sometimes, right?
Right.
So I kind of let go of the attachment, and it said, you know, what do you want? I said, I'll have an owl.
An owl?
I like owls. And so I thought, and right away, my brain started trying to figure out all the ways it could show up.
Right.
I'm going to see a little kid in the grocery store with an owl plushie in the cart, or someone's going to mail me a letter and the stamp is going to be an owl, or, you know, I'm going to buy some product and then realize when I get home, oh, look, the label is an owl. You know, I had all these ways, and I convinced myself somehow that it was going to happen. I didn't know how, but it was going to happen. In the next 24 hours, an owl was somehow going to just show up to me. Right. And so I had this, and I can't tell you how to do this part, right? I had a really strong faith that it was going to happen. It's like, I just knew it. I knew it was going to happen. So less than 24 hours later, I'm sitting at my desk, and like right now I'm facing my computer, but if I swivel this way, there's a big window right here. So I usually face out the window, and I live in the middle of the city, busy city. Sometimes I see a cardinal or a sparrow. And all of a sudden I have my face down, I'm writing, and I hear this like tapping and scratching. And I look up, and there's an owl with a wingspan of maybe, well, my window's 4 feet wide, and it was wider than the window.
Wow.
And it was like bumping the window. My window's floor to ceiling. It was bumping all the way up until it got to the top, and it just went up.
Wow.
And I looked up, I heard the sound. I looked up, and I was like, oh, and then all of a sudden, like, I thought it was awesome enough. And then I realized it was, and I started screaming. I called my husband. It was like, hey, and I was like, it's the owl. It's here. Totally.
Oh, cool.
But the only other time I'd ever seen an actual owl was at like a falconry show at the Renaissance Fair or something, or the zoo. I mean, I've never seen an owl in the neighborhood. And that one.
I can't remember any time seeing an owl flap its way up a window of a house that I was in. I can't ever remember that.
In the middle,
and I didn't know owls were so big.
In the middle of the day, too, right? Mm-hmm. Owls are nocturnal. Like I know there are some owls in the neighborhood because in 30 years of living here, maybe half a dozen times I've heard them at night, like at 2 a.m. at night.
Right.
So they're somewhere up in the trees. We do have some big trees here, but I've never seen one. And that was just, that one got me. Like I was like, all right. So it's a really fun, it's a fun thing to do. And, you know, like I said, if I wouldn't have told like 300 people that I was going to do this, I wouldn't have had
Right.
But it was just the idea. I was like, oh no, now I got to come through. I've got to manifest this thing now. But
Nasha's asking a question, and she's kind of anticipating what we're going to talk about a little bit because we haven't actually brought out the experiment. So let's bring up her question, and then we can quickly address it. She has it in 2 pieces. Steric is actually supposed to be specifics. Is it okay to ask for a specific person? And then she follows up like manifesting a partner.
You know what? I can't tell you if something's okay or not okay, because anything is okay that you decide to ask for. I will just tell you that as a relationship coach of the past 12 years, I am always encouraging people not to ask for a specific person. I will tell you that if there's a specific person in your life and you know them and there's a potential for you to have a relationship, then maybe you can ask that the two of you strike up a conversation or that you'll notice each other. But a lot of times when people come to me wanting me to help them manifest a specific person, a lot of times it's an ex who doesn't want anything to do with them, or it's somebody who is not an ex but still doesn't have any interest in them. And I don't do that kind of magic because it always backfires. I just don't see that it's a good, if there's a person that's a real match for you, you won't have to do things like that, right? You can visualize meeting someone and having a relationship with someone, and maybe if you do have a relationship, create the experience of having a better relationship. I know that's a lot of complicated information, but really, asking for someone, it just depends. I say don't get specific. Just ask for someone who is a great match for you, right? The universe might know a better match for you than whoever it is that you want to get specific about.
More than likely, actually.
I don't know. Monique and Walt may have a completely different answer for you. So,
do you ever get that question, Monique? What do you say?
I'm of the opposite, only because I did manifest a specific person, and it was an ex. And I did.
It was an ex.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. It was an ex.
Yeah. So see, different ideas. Here's what my rule of thumb is: if somebody is telling you, I don't want to be with you, then, to me anyway, because this was my experience, I asked myself at one point, because I was doing everything to try to fix this relationship. And then I asked myself, why do I want to be with someone who is flat out telling me they don't want to be around me?
Yeah.
I realized I wanted to be with someone who was wild about me. I wanted to be with someone who wanted to be around me every minute of every day. And that's what I manifested. And believe me, it's so much better than being with someone who can't stand being around you.
Yeah. Now that part I agree with you on, Cindie. Luckily, that was not the case for me. We broke up, but it wasn't like oh my gosh, get away from me. I hate you. I never want to see you again kind of thing. Right. We broke up.
You get back together, and people can fix relationships, and that's part of what I do in my work, right? But what I'm saying is, like, sometimes people say, well, I keep texting him and he doesn't text me back. He won't answer my calls. He doesn't answer my emails. Can you help me get him back? And I'm like, why do you want him back?
You're in love with the idea of probably what it used to be, maybe in the beginning, and thinking that they can get that back.
They want a feeling back. They want a feeling that they had back. And it's sometimes my work is showing someone that they can have that again. It doesn't have to be with the same person.
Right. But they have to be that person.
Yeah.
So,
so there you go. We gave you any answer you want. It's right.
But at the end of the day, it's like you said, Cindie, just depends, right?
It does depend.
It totally does. It
Yeah.
does. There's no perfect way to make it happen. You know,
Right.
it's like go with your heart, go with your gut, go and you follow your instinct, whatever helps lead you the best. It's
I'm reminded of what we've often talked about, Cindie, you and I, when we were doing the Neville Goddard books, because there are a number of places where, of course, Neville's stories, all of his stories are about getting exactly what you're asking for. Not even in the neighborhood. He gets the person always gets exactly what they're looking for.
That's true.
And there were some stories that included making contact with long lost family members or family members that lived in different countries. And at that point in time, that was a major deal because there was no internet, you know.
Right.
Phone calls cost $5,000. Well, not that much, but you know, they were expensive to make phone calls, and traveling was expensive and all this kind of stuff. So it was a big deal. But the thing that I always noticed, and we talked about this a number of times, Cindie, the thing I always noticed is the people who were trying to connect with other people, they were trying to connect with people who already wanted to hear from them. It was never, well, reconnect me with this family member who hasn't spoken to me in 20 years because I stepped on his foot. It wasn't that kind of a tale. It was always somebody who wanted to connect with them.
Yeah.
So and I always like to remember, we are all creators. Every single one of us is a creator. And so if you're asking one creator to basically use the law of attraction to make another creator change his mind about you, you're violating what a creator is. Part of being a creator is respecting other creators and respecting their choices. Even if we don't like what the choices are, we still, we need to respect them. So that's where my resistance point comes in about trying to get back an ex. Like, well, okay, if the ex wants you back, great. But what if the ex doesn't want you back? Why do you feel like you have the right to impose your will with the law of attraction on your ex?
I think that most of the time, the reason why it's an ex that doesn't want them back is because if the ex wanted them back, they'd be together and they wouldn't be calling me.
Well, yeah, that's right.
Right? But it's like they've tried, they've reached out and they can't get an answer back. And they're like, okay, we've got to do something about this. But I think that just knowing what you want and giving yourself what you want first, treating yourself the way you want the world to treat you is the way to open up lots of, doors to relationships with, romantic partners and friends and family and, to have a good community of people around you that love you, because we all want to be loved. That's the thing, is that we want to be loved and we want to have a certain feeling. So, there's a saying that I'm sure it's Deepak Chopra. It's a quote that I'm sure has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but I always use it because it's so precious to me. It's that he said there are no missing pieces in the universe. And I always think about that if you're wanting a relationship, there is someone out there that's the match for you, right?
Oh,
yeah. And it's not, there are probably lots of people who would be a great match for you. Like I will tell people I'm definitely married to my soulmate. And I also believe if anything happened to either one of us, that there would be another soulmate for me and for him. Like, it's not that, oh, I'm so glad I found you in this sea of billions of people because you're the only one.
Right.
I mean, that doesn't even make sense, mathematically.
Well, it's a great way to start freaking out and get into a fear-based mode. I mean, I remember, I don't remember if it was a book or a movie, but I remember there was this one character that was just flipping out over it. But what if there's only one person for you, and then what if you don't actually meet in life, and then your whole life is ruined? He's going way over the top with this thing about a soulmate.
Yeah, no, it's like there's we can have lots of different matches, and they're all out there, and it's just getting on the right wavelength to where we're matching, right? To where our vibrations match. I mean, that's this whole thing. I was, that owl came to me because I was aligned with it.
Yeah.
Right. And I still, like I said, I can't even tell myself like how I actually did that, but I just knew it was coming. You could not have convinced me that an owl wasn't going to show up. Now, I didn't know it was going to show up in such a spectacular way, but I knew it was going to happen. Why? So that's why synchronicities happen. And that's all these experiments is that we are usually, there's a word, synchronicity, right? Two things happening at the same time, two things being in sync. That's what the word is. It's in sync. I was in sync with that owl. There's another word, serendipity, and they're similar, but I think serendipity is mostly kind of an accident, right? Like my friend was telling me he was in Europe, and he was telling his girlfriend that he woke up with this, I can't remember the song, but it was a Beatles song. I remember that. He woke up with like a Beatles song in his mind, and he was telling her about it. And as they reached the corner of the street they were walking on, the street sign was like the name of the song. Like the song was Mrs. Robinson, and it was Robinson Drive or something like that, right? But it was like, oh my gosh, like right as he was telling her, they looked up, and to me, that's serendipity. It's still an alignment. But what we're doing with these experiments, with any kind of law of attraction, or what I rather call conscious creation, is that we are setting the synchronicity up.
Yes.
We're setting it up consciously. We're saying, this is what I want to be in sync with. And then we somehow get ourselves there where we're in that alignment and it shows up. So I like the idea of, consciously creating it. Not just happening upon it. I mean, we have serendipities happen all the time, but this is like a little step higher or deeper, or wider. I don't know.
Well, then let's go for it then. I mean, let's pick one out, and let's involve everybody who's in the live stream and everybody who's listening in the podcast, and let's make it one of the open-ended ones, one of the ones that's easy to just kind of buy into, because maybe one of the ones where you're not asking for something specific, just because they're easy and they're nice, kind of easy way to get started doing this thing. Because I'm just imagining what would it be like if we had an entire lab. That's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about a lab experiment. What if we had an entire lab of people doing these experiments, and if the lab just kept getting bigger and bigger? That's what I keep imagining, right? So you have thousands of people doing these lab experiments. To me, that's exciting. So I figured, why not start it right here? So, and if anybody, by the way, I think it was Brenda who asked if we were doing E squared, and yes, we are doing E squared, as Cindie said. If any of you are fans of E squared or E cubed, and you have a particular favorite experiment that you'd like us to do, put it in the chat if you're listening to the live stream.
Or a story, an experience you've had.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Absolutely. Because we love stories here. Stories are fun. Stories are always great. So yeah, share your stories too. Cindie, you're looking at the book. Do you see anything that we can...
I'm looking at the book, and one of them caught my eye, although I'll have to read it because I don't remember it. But it's called the Abracadabra Principle.
I like the principle. That sounds
good.
And
it says, what you focus on expands.
Okay.
Right.
So that sounds like kind of that it's not super, super specific. So would you like me to read from the book, or do you want me to just tell you what the lab report sheet says?
No, read it. Tell us what it's about.
Okay, so it's 48 hours.
Okay.
So that gives you time to decide, start it during the week, and have a report for us.
There will be a report next week.
It says the premise. When I first heard my thoughts could bring material goods into my life, I did what any intelligent thinking person would do. I scoffed. But I also decided to give it a try. What could it hurt to conduct a secret experiment? Andrea, my teacher, said to write down 3 things I wanted. That's all. I didn't have to zap them out of thin air. I didn't have to work out a budget. I just had to make a list. What the heck? I want a bicycle, a computer, and a piano. Within 2 weeks, I was the proud owner of a beautiful red mountain bike and an IBM PC Junior. The piano took a little bit longer. But some years ago, my friend Wendy, who was moving to Maryland, called and told me that if I'd come get it, I could have her beautiful cherrywood Kimball. My daughter, forced to take piano lessons, has been cursing me ever since. Yes.
Once again, proving be very careful what you wish for.
It says, yes, this is the chapter you've all been waiting for, the chapter on how to manifest material things. It's the spiritual principle that attracts would-be believers like 15-year-old males to Megan Fox. Okay.
Okay.
Let me guess. At some point in your life, you've read Think and Grow Rich.
Yep.
The Magic of Believing, The Power of Positive Thinking, or some combination thereof. Okay, I've read 2 out of 3. Oh, 3. Okay.
Monique, checkbox.
Right.
As old and crotchety as these books might be, there's a reason that they're still in print. They speak of a universal truth. If you know what you want, you can have it. My friend Chris, okay, most of my friends, think this principle employs magic, some mysterious juju that might work for some people, but not others. But it's not any more complicated than walking from Biloxi, Mississippi to New Orleans once you have the right map. Let's say Biloxi is what you have now, a beat-up 94 Escort, a job you can't stand, and a lot of weekends watching DVDs by yourself. New Orleans, where you really want to be, is a shiny new Jaguar, a high-paying job that utilizes and appreciates your greatest strengths, and weekends watching movies with an astoundingly hot specimen of the opposite sex.
Oh.
Or maybe the same sex.
I like that.
So, how do you get there? You start focusing on New Orleans. You forget that Biloxi and your beat-up 94 Escort even exist. And you remember that at every moment, you're either heading toward New Orleans or you're doubling back toward Biloxi. Now, I really like this idea that she's talking about right here. It's a great example, but that at any moment, you're either heading towards or away from what you want, right? Every thought is a step in one direction or the other. Thoughts that take you back to Biloxi are good jobs and hot dates are not that available. Or the even more popular, good jobs and hot dates are available, but not for me.
But not for me.
Thoughts that move you toward New Orleans go something like this. That new job is going to be so amazing. And man, is this person sitting next to me on my couch ever so fine. The more energy and excitement you invest, the quicker you'll get there. Some people get stirred up, take a few steps toward their desires, panic, turn right back around toward Biloxi. Others leave the Biloxi city limits, walk for a while, take a rest to look around, and then get pissed because it doesn't look like New Orleans. Or Biloxi, you know? If anybody's listening and like you're from Biloxi and you love Biloxi, Mississippi, like I'm sorry, I didn't.
Just pretend you're going from New Orleans to Biloxi. It's just very simple. You reverse direction, right?
Right.
Of course, it doesn't look like New Orleans. You're not there yet. You're still seeing countryside that's just outside Biloxi, stuff you're going to have to pass through to get to New Orleans. But you've left Biloxi. Say a cheer and keep focusing. Whatever you do, don't stop walking. The only way to reach the sweet champagne-drenched finish line of where you want to be is to keep your nose pointed in that direction. Do not turn around and look back. Biloxi is history. Stay focused on, did I mention New Orleans? At first, you'll feel glorious about this new heroic endeavor. You'll be astonished by how easy it is for you to stay focused on the beautiful city of New Orleans. You'll be laughing and skipping and enjoying the vistas, but inevitably, the menacing distractions will crop up. Your thoughts will get sore. They'll get bored with the new routine. And they'll want to head back toward Biloxi, you know, just for a quick visit, just for one cup of tea.
Right.
You start spending less and less time on New Orleans and more time on why the whole endeavor is futile. Maybe you should put out of its misery before it's old enough to remember where you live. But don't do that. Just keep walking, keep focusing on New Orleans. At the risk of appearing anal, I want to make it clear that the Biloxi New Orleans example is only a metaphor. And the last thing I'd ever want to do is offend Biloxi. Okay.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Which happens to be a really cool town with the nearby new Frank Gehry designed Orr O'Keeffe Museum of Art. The big thing to remember is there's no real physical work involved. It's all about training your mind, that incorrigible slacker. Sometimes our minds really can be a slacker, right? It sounds like pie in the sky, I know, but I've seen it happen time and time again. Getting to New Orleans doesn't take any particular gift, just takes a willingness to keep walking, focusing your attention, energy, and awareness. I always think of a magician pulling a scarf through a hole. If you can just grab a hold of one tiny end, you can pull it all the way through. That's all it takes, one itty bitty end. Decide you want it. Keep focusing until you've pulled it all the way through. What can you manifest? Pretty much anything you've ever seen, heard, or experienced. The world is basically your own mail order catalog. If you've seen it, or even if you can imagine it, just grab an end of that scarf and start walking. Maybe I should be more specific. My friend Don's New Orleans was a Martin guitar. Martin guitars start at $1,100. And while he didn't have the ready cash, he made the intention to own a Martin guitar. He didn't do a damn thing. He just kept believing, focusing on that guitar, that someday, somehow he would get one. Nearly a year later, he got a message from his mom. Your dad just picked up an old guitar at a garage sale for $5. It can be a toy for Daisy. Well, that old toy for Don's daughter, Daisy, was a rare 1943 Martin 28, one of only 100 made.
Oh my
The same guitar Eric Clapton plays, worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $20,000. It seems that Daisy will have to wait and inherit the guitar in Don's will.
Right.
I like to call this the Statue of Liberty principle. Even though this principle is the beacon that represents everything people think they want, vacations to Jamaica, a big home in Malibu, it's actually way down on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's only on the first, maybe second rung. You need to get this principle down, of course, so you can take your mind off material worries and so that you can know the truth about who you are. But none of this stuff is what you really want. Not really. Jesus could never have brought Lazarus back to life and multiplied all those fishes and loaves if he'd been preoccupied by the desire for a beachside residence. That said, I do not want to make you feel guilty for wanting a big home in Malibu. There's not one thing wrong with a big home in Malibu or anything else you want. Do not feel guilty. Want it. Walk toward it with all your heart and might. Just know that there are higher rungs and that the most people hoard material things out of fear. And fear, after all, is what we're attempting to move away from.
Very
Pretty
cool.
good so far. Pretty good analogies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
it.
Okay. This next part, she's talking about coherence, and I think this is important. This is what we were kind of just talking about, right? Being in alignment, synchronicity.
Mhm.
She says, lining up your ducks, or what coherence is. Great Spirit is everywhere. It's not necessary to speak to him in a loud voice. He hears whatever is in our minds and hearts. That's a quote from Black Elk, Lakota Medicine Man. The author, Pam Grout, goes on to say, most people think that they can incite change only by addressing God with some screech for help. But since we now know God is the force field that runs the universe, we also know that every thought incites change. Every time we think anything, be it a silent, that skirt makes her look like John Travolta in Hairspray, or I can make Harry Carey if I don't get that raise. We influence the field of infinite potentiality. I think I should probably repeat that every single thought affects the FP. The only reason we don't change water into wine or heal cancer with one touch is because our thoughts are scattered all over the place. Instead of being one constant, well-aimed tuning fork, our thoughts are more like a junior high band of beginning trumpet players. On one hand, we pray for things to work out, but on the other, we worry that they won't.
Yeah.
At the same time we imagine a positive outcome, we secretly think optimism is a bunch of baloney. We want to be committed to a relationship with so-and-so, but what if he leaves? We want to make money, but didn't the Bible say something about camels and rich people in the eye of a needle? The fourth is literally bouncing off walls. Go this way. No, wait, no, go that way. It's knocking around like a lightning bug in a mason jar. It's being dissipated because we have no clear bead on what we really want. It's not that the field of potentiality isn't answering our prayers. It's just that we're praying for too many things. When you figure the average person has something like 60,000 thoughts a day, you come to realize that your life is being prayed about by a heck of a lot more than the please God let me get out of the speeding ticket you uttered when you first noticed the flashing red lights. Sure, you begged for peace of mind today, but you also spent 1,200 thoughts obsessing about that damn coworker who stole your website idea. Yes, you made the intention to think and grow rich, but you also devoted 500 thoughts to worrying about your overdue car payment. When you understand prayer for what it really is, it's easier to understand why that one-time plea to God doesn't always pan out. The only reason Jesus could walk on water was because 100% of his thoughts, prayers, believed he could. He had overcome the world's thought system that says only an idiot will be stupid enough to step out of the boat. There was not one doubt, not a single thought, prayer, in his consciousness that didn't fully believe it. Your mind is very powerful, no matter how badly you disrespect the privilege, no matter how ineffectual you feel. Every single thought produces form at some level. Just because those thoughts are screwed up, and believe me, if you're a human, at least some of your thoughts are screwed up, doesn't mean weak or ineffective. Weak and ineffective at getting what you want, maybe, but never weak and ineffective. Something she mentioned here reminded me of, well, remember about a year ago, my wrist was just completely fried,
Right.
and I couldn't write or type, and I'm a writer. So this was a problem.
Mhm.
And I was taking care of it. I was icing it. I was wearing a brace. I was doing all the things I was supposed to do. And it did start getting better, but it was just taking a really long time. And one night I caught myself wondering, I wonder if it's going to heal all the way. I wonder if it's going to be like this in this kind of fragile state where I have to be careful forever. I wonder, and it hit me. I was like, oh, no, you don't. Because if I'm wondering, then I'm not believing that it's going to heal up. Right? It's what she's talking about right here. Yes, I had thoughts and visualizations and all the magic I knew to make it heal. And I also had this wondering that was going on. As soon as I realized that, I just stopped letting myself have those wonderings. I literally said out loud, oh no, I don't wonder about that. Every day in every way, I'm getting better and better. It's completely healed now. But I had to catch that dissonant thought.
And it healed pretty quickly, if I remember correctly. Once you had that little mental breakthrough where you realized how you were kind of undermining yourself.
Yes.
I think it was like a week, wasn't it? It was really quick after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got quite a few pages before we get to the actual lab sheet. So I want to ask you how you want me to deal with that.
Why don't we skip ahead to the lab sheet? By the way, I wanted to also share a couple things that came up here in the discussion. First of all, we had asked for examples of people who attracted stuff quickly. Robert said he attracted his twin flame in half a day. Pretty quick there. Well done, Robert.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent.
And then it was Brenda. Oh, here we go. I read the first chapter of E Squared. Test was asked for a blessing. I didn't ask, but it made an impression. A plane was filling up. When the plane took off, it seemed to be full, except for the seat by me.
I take it Brenda was counting that as a blessing. It's like,
yeah, she was. Well, I can understand that. You get more room on the plane. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. My husband and I have often talked about seats on planes. I used to fly a lot, and I'm like 5'2" if I stand up really tall, and I weigh 100 pounds right now. My body would be touching the armrest on either side of me, and I'm like, how does like a normal person that's not an elf, like me, fit in this seat? Like, I have no idea. So yeah, getting like the row to yourself or next to you, that's nice. Okay, so we're gonna read the method, which is the page before the lab sheet.
Okay.
It starts with a quote: "We are powerfully imprisoned by the terms in which we have been conducted to think." Buckminster Fuller. Bucky Fuller, one of my favorites. It says, in this experiment, using nothing but the power of your thoughts, you will magnetize something into your life. Oh, I just got chills because I'm so excited.
Oh, good. Excitement's good, right?
Yeah, I'm just excited because of the owl. This must have been the experiment that we did with the owl.
Oh, Brenda gave, I had to follow up. Brenda gave a little extra detail that I can fully appreciate.
Oh,
She's 6 foot tall and her knees always hit the seat in front of her. I know exactly what you're talking about, Brenda. I'm 6'8". I know exactly what you're talking about. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yes, really important.
That's awesome. That's awesome that you asked for a blessing. Like, it's pretty vague until you get the blessing.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. This is it. Okay. In this experiment, using nothing but the power of your thoughts, you will magnetize something into your life. You will set an intention to draw a particular event or thing into your life. Be specific down to the exact make and model. Since you've only got 48 hours, it's probably best to pick something that won't drive your thoughts back to Biloxi.
You're right.
For example, if you decide to manifest a BMW Z3 2.8 Roadster, it's quite possible your predominant thoughts will be, yeah, right, eat my shorts.
I forgot what kind of a sense of humor she's got. She's great.
Needless to say, thoughts like that won't take you all the way to New Orleans. Not that you couldn't manifest a BMW Z3 Roadster. There are gurus in India who pluck jewels from thin air. But for the sake of paradigm shifting, let's start with baby steps. Pick something you can get your mind around, like a front row theater ticket or flowers from your significant other. My friend Chuck tried this experiment and decided to be a wise ass. He wanted to sleep with 2 girls at one time. Sure enough, by the end of his 48 hours, he met a new woman whom he now dates and ended up in bed with her and her 6-year-old daughter, who crawled in for a quick snuggle with her mom.
Now that was funny.
She says that's why it's important to be specific and to realize that the field of potential has a great sense of humor. All right.
That's funny.
I always talk about this with people, like being specific with what you're asking for from other people. Like there's the story of the wife who was saying to her husband, I wish you work too many hours. I wish you would take time off work. Please take time off work. So he took a week off work and booked a golf trip for himself.
No.
He was not happy, but she wasn't specific. He's like, right. You told me I should take time off work. Okay. Here's what, if you're taking notes, here's what's on the lab report sheet. Okay. It's written just like this in the book. One sheet. It says the principle is the abracadabra principle. The theory, whatever you focus on expands. The question, can I pull things out of thin air simply by thinking about them? Kind of makes me laugh because the owl literally was in thin air, right? It was right. Flying. The hypothesis. By making the following intention and focusing on its outcome, I can draw it into my life. Mm-hmm. And then there's a line that says, my intention. That's where I wrote, I'll have an owl, please. I'm going to have to think up something else for this. Maybe I should think of it now while we're on the air. Right?
And this is something you want to give some attention to. You don't want to just kind of come up with something willy-nilly, because like you pointed out, if you don't ask for the right thing, you're going to get something that really wasn't what you had in mind.
Right.
Right. It could be dangerous.
It could be dangerous, yes.
So time required 48 hours.
Okay.
The approach. I have scanned over the big catalog called the world, and for the sake of this experiment have decided that this is what I intend to manifest in the next 48 hours. I will focus on it with all of my being, and I will remember what Abraham Hicks likes to say. It's as easy to manifest a castle as a button. And then you note today's date, today's time, or whenever you're making the intention, the date and the time. The deadline for manifesting would be 48 hours later. And then it says research notes. At the bottom of the page, it says a great many people think they are thinking when they are merely rearranging their prejudices.
Ooh.
Wow. William James. So this is a pretty simple one, right? Is that you're getting specific about something that you want to bring into your experience. She says a thing or an event. 48 hours.
And recommending something that it's easy to believe in. Not going for the Maserati right off the top. As much as Monique likes to recommend the Maserati instead of the Mazda.
My favorite car is a Maserati.
You have good taste.
My favorite car is a Maserati Quattroporte. And I saw one the other day and it just made me so happy, just even seeing one. Right. I think that when I think about the owl and the idea that my brain suddenly thought of a whole bunch of ways that it could appear, maybe that had something to do with me accepting, like there's so many ways it could appear. Of course it's going to appear. Mm-hmm. Instead of having that thought of this will never happen.
Right.
Right. And I think if my intention right now was that, someone was going to show up at my house with a Maserati and just hand me the keys, I think my brain would say, that's not going to happen.
Definitely.
So we want to go away from that. This is never going to happen, and go for something that's, a little easier to believe.
I want to also bring in another comment from, this is again from Robert, because he kind of makes an interesting point here in this little story he tells. He says, when I was a heavy smoker, I participated in a prize contest offered by a cigarette company. And one of the prizes was a touchscreen smartphone. This is back in the days of the old mobile phones with the buttons on them.
I remember those.
And I remember those too. But he wanted a smartphone. Not only had he won that particular phone, but he also had another phone and a laptop that he got. And I want to bring that point in because that's part of what I think goes under research notes. The universe delivers things more than once. In fact, it keeps sending stuff to us until we finally notice.
Yes. Right. Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that would go under research notes.
Well, and also, like he said, I really wanted that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you think about somebody asking about wanting their ex back, like sometimes they can't stop thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really are focused on it.
Right.
Right. And so that can be part of the success story here is you really want it. So you're really focused on it. But I don't think it has to be something impossible to have.
It's probably better not to.
Yeah,
otherwise, your own belief is going to get in the way.
Go for something you can believe for.
Yeah.
Did either one of you have anything pop into your head? Like, oh, I know, because I haven't yet. So.
Well, I'll tell you what happened as soon as we kind of laid out these parameters, there was that little part of my monkey brain that was saying, oh God, I'm afraid of coming up with anything. I'll be disappointed.
Oh, right.
See?
Well, that was part of me with the owl. I thought, oh my gosh, like, do I really want to tell all these people this? Because it doesn't happen. Right. And the thing when I was reading is that I just decided like 2 nights ago that I want a piano, a new piano. My piano is old and it doesn't want to stay in tune anymore. And I really want to write more music. And it's like, I want a piano. And when I read that about I want a piano, I was like, no, I'm not going to ask for that right now. I don't think 48 hours is going to give me enough time for that to happen. So, yeah.
So that's, I think, what we're really trying to do. We're trying to identify what do I feel confident or at least reasonably confident could come in a 48-hour period.
Well,
not something I'm going to doubt a lot.
And then there's the other flip side. Like it said, flowers from your significant other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my husband brings me flowers every week. And I'm like, oh, I could say that. I know.
Right. You know you're going to get that.
Yeah, sure. That's safe.
Yeah. We want something that's going to be.
So how far do we stretch the rubber band? I mean, how far do we push it? How far do we dare to reach out to something that we're not 100% sure we're going to get?
Yeah. I don't know.
That's the challenge right there.
Yeah.
And this, I think, is actually a key part of the Pam Grout approach to experiments. Because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to stretch your belief system just a little bit. Not so far that you'll break the rubber band.
Right.
Because when you break the rubber band, that's when you basically quit law of attraction and you go someplace else. Instead, just stretch it just enough so that when something does show up, you say, oh, my belief has just gotten a little bit bigger than it was before.
And I'm thinking about, I would thought, well, what about just saying a surprise gift, sort of like Brenda said, to just ask for a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular one, she's saying, be specific. That might not be specific enough. I don't know.
What do you think, Monique? We've been pontificating here. What's your take on it? How would you go about selecting something here?
I already have my selection.
See, okay, now there we go. Very simple. We needed you to lead the way. That's what it was.
Right. Are you going to tell us, or is it going to be?
Yeah, I already have mine.
Are you going to share it, or is it
Oh
secret?
no, I can tell you.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead.
No, it's not a secret. No. So, what I am going to manifest in the next 48 hours is a new client for my new coaching program.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and I'm just starting to talk about it on Facebook and IG. So
Okay.
that's a new paid client.
A paid client.
Right? Not just a discovery call, but someone who's like, yes, I need this. I want this money. Yes, I'm ready to pay right now.
Perfect. I like that. Yes.
So that's mine.
I like the specificity of it because you could get the other kind, right? The other kind that shows up, I really need your help, but I don't really want to pay the fee. It's too high for me. I can't afford that.
Now, I could go even more specific and say paid in full, but I'm not going to say whether they need to be paid in full or payment plan. I don't really care, but they are paying.
Yes,
That's
I like
good.
that a lot. I like that a lot.
48 hours is actually hanging me up a little bit here, to be honest, because I can think of some things that I want, but I'm not sure if I believe they would show up in 48 hours, just because I'm thinking right now of the fact that Louise's and my gardening business just opened up for the season, and so we've got a number of existing clients who've already sent in their prepayments, so things are going well and so forth. I can think of a few things I'd like to ask for there, but I know it's not likely to happen in 48 hours. It's probably going to happen in the next couple of weeks or something. So none of them really fit the 48-hour parameter. That's what I'm stuck on right now. What can I ask for that I think has a good chance of showing up in 48 hours? It's because that really constrains it,
Right.
We're only talking 48 hours there. So you got to believe that it could happen in 48 hours.
Time.
Yeah. So let's see. What
I
else
could do something easy like change water into scotch, but I want to pick something challenging. Let's see.
What would I want to ask for? And it's got to be meaningful too. I mean, it's one thing to kind of just throw out, well, I'll ask for, a new tissue box to show up. And I don't really care if another tissue box shows up. It's not that big of a deal to me, It's got to be something that has some meaning.
I'm going to ask for that I would hear from either an old friend or an old client. When I say old, I don't mean like hundreds of years old, but I mean someone who I've known, someone who I've either coached in the last 12 years or someone who I've been friends with for a long time, but that I haven't heard from in a long time. I'm going to ask that I either hear from them through email or some kind of social media or a letter in the actual mail, or that I just get a message from a person I haven't heard from in a long time. That's what I'm going to ask
That's
for.
nice. I like that. Actually, you gave me a good idea when you thought about having somebody contact you. I said to myself, okay, well, here's something that I like, because we're getting, I'm getting to the point now where I'm trying to reach out and get some more special guests to come in. And I only started like 2 weeks ago or something like that. We've had a few guests on, and I'd like to have some more. I'd like to have a special guest contact me within the 48 hours and say, I want to be on the show.
Ooh, love it.
Yeah. Now I can believe that one.
I just asked somebody yesterday if they would be on our show, and they said yes. And I said, okay, I'll set it up.
Now, this is an example of something coming true instantly.
Right.
I hadn't told you about it yet. I was like, oh, every time Walt does this experiment, it happens the second he
Just like
says
that.
it out of his mouth. It's like already done.
Asking it is given.
Right?
Oh, that is funny. That is funny. I got to work on these experiments then. I mean, I'm coming up with too easy for the universe. I got to make it more difficult.
Nothing is too hard for the universe. So.
That's the great part.
Oh, that is funny. That is funny. That's just like the 555 one. I mean, just bang, done.
That's funny. That's really funny.
Hey, anybody in the live stream? Have anybody in the live stream thought of something that they want to attract in playing this little game, the abracadabra experiment with us? So if you've got something, put something into the live stream chat section, into the comments section of whichever page you're on, and share it with us. But okay, I think I'll still go with another one besides the one that Cindie is bringing in, just so that I can, because I can't think of another thing off the top of my head right now.
Right.
But I'll go with that.
More, so.
I want a second special guest to come on in addition to the one that he's bringing in. Yeah. Okay. So we write this down, right? We actually list that on the page.
Yeah. And
so I got to write in. So
5 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, there we go.
Yep. So today's date and the time. All right. Special guest in 24 hours. All right. This is good. The pressure's on. No, actually, there's no pressure at all. That's the whole point. There is no pressure. This is just an experiment to see what happens.
This is exciting.
We're down to like the last minute, so I got to get the promos in. First of all, use the LOA Today app if you haven't downloaded. Send in your questions, send in your comments, and share them with us here on the show. Also, I'm realizing that I haven't asked in a long time for people to subscribe to the podcast, so I'm going to start doing that. If you are not yet a subscriber to the podcast, subscribe on. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, we're on iHeartRadio. We're everywhere, so subscribe too, and binge listen like a lot of people do, because that's really, really cool stuff to do. So okay, I think we got our initial thing set up for the week. So, ladies, let's check in next week and find out what happened. It's going to be cool.
All right, let's do it.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye.